Greetings from your State Representative Kerry Condotta. We are in full House session and it is really ramping up over here. The fact is we've been on the floor for the last several days, I said several days, debating the I-960 issue. What's I-960? That was an initiative that provided for a 2/3 vote to raise taxes. Now that particular type of initiative has been passed 3 times over the last 15 years. 3 times the voters have said you need 2/3 before you raise our taxes, and yet the majority party here is trying to overturn that issue. Why would they do that? Makes it a lot easier to raise taxes, and in an election year, a lot of their members, 11 members at least, won't have to vote for a tax increase. And you'll find out in the end, if that's the case, that those are the members that are most vulnerable to re-election. It's all politics all the time in Olympia, folks. Once in a while we do some policy. But speaking of policy, if I-960 is overturned, then it's wide open for taxes, and as we speak, the governor has released her revenue package. It's very similar to ones we've seen in the past. It's an $800 million, nearly $1 billion tax increase, comprised of many, many things, including taxing bottled water, taxing pop, taxing candy and gum, taxing carbonated beverages, taxing gold bullion, which is a very interesting thing, and a number of other taxes. It's quite a list. It goes on for several pages here. $800 million. Our argument is that we just don't think the economy can take that right now. Government has expanded its numbers dramatically over the years. Do you realize just back in 1985, we were spending $7.5 billion in our budget, in 85. In 1995, 10 years later, we doubled it to $15 billion. That was after only about an 11% increase in our population. In 2005, we had reached almost $24 billion. Once again, a large expansion of government, and by 2007, we had reached the peak at $33 billion. In just that short period of time, we'd gone from $7.5 billion to $33 billion. This is totally unsustainable. And so can we keep taxing ourselves into prosperity? Well, interesting testimony on the floor today. The fact was, people said our roads are deteriorating, our schools are deteriorating, and our social service systems are coming apart. Well, if the idea of expanding government and spending more money and raising taxes is such a good idea, then why are things getting worse? The federal government did the same. Under George W. Bush, they expanded dramatically, yes, even under a Republican president. And President Obama is doubling down, doubling the spending again over what George W. Bush did. And yet, how are things looking today? Not so good. The continued expansion of government is simply leveraging into the future. It's a bill we cannot pay. It's a road we cannot travel down. It is time to change course, and that's what the Republican caucus is trying to do today. We are standing up for I-960 and saying that is a caution sign on a road we can no longer afford. We can no longer go there. It is time for government to deleverage too. Those of us in the private sector certainly have, our businesses, and personally, we've all deleveraged. Time for government to do the same. We'll see what happens in the end. We'll be back to tell you more next week. Thanks for listening. This is your State Representative, Kerry Condotta.